Hello and welcome. This is a video going through the details we are told about the end times empire spoken of in Daniel and Revelation. Firstly, we can look at Daniel 2 to get an overview of the empires or kingdoms spoken about before the end time one comes onto the scene. These will be the empires or kingdoms plus the modern countries which were part of them, either the entire country or just part of it. Daniel 2 tells us of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Hellenistic period, which includes the Ptolemaic Kingdom and the Seleucid Empire. Then it shows the Islamic Empire and the Ottoman Empire. Now these last two empires are stated to be one in Daniel because they are the same kind of empire. The two legs indicate that they are separate from one another in time, but the force behind them remains the same. We are also told that these empires cover the entire area of the previous ones, so we can have a quick look to make sure that they do. We can check the countries of the previous empires against the countries in the Islamic and the Ottoman empires, and all the countries are accounted for. This takes us up to the feet, where the Ottoman Empire was divided up in 1922 until the present time. Then there are 10 toes which show the future empire that we are looking for. Then we can go back and look at the statue in Daniel 2 again in a less detailed way. We can see the current nations where each kingdom or empire spoken of has had their capitals, which is most commonly the area the kingdom or empire originated from. The only one missing from this is the Hellenistic period. This period covers from Alexander the Great until the start of the Roman Empire. There would be 5, 6 or more capitals in this section, but I have focused on the brass thighs as they are spoken about more specifically to denote the original king of the north and king of the south. But using this overview we can list the countries and see how many are repeated throughout the statue, kingdom or empire spoken of. We can see the capitals are all high on the list of repeating countries. But we can also add the countries that only appear once in the Daniel 2 statue. Using this, that we can then identify which countries are spoken of specifically in Bible prophecy. It's not an exhaustive list, but I think it's clear that the ones specifically mentioned elsewhere as countries in the end times are mainly the ones which repeat the most down the centuries in the kingdoms and empires of this statue. As Ecclesiastes 9 verse 1 indicates, there is nothing new under the sun. It may be reasonable to assume that when the kingdom of the 10 toes appears, seeing as it is connected to all these previous kingdoms or empires, that at least some of the kingdoms will again repeat and be part of this new empire. It gives us a broad picture of the area to look at for this end time empire, the focus seemingly being on the Middle East. So we have an outline of current nations that may be involved in the end time empire. But are we able to narrow down the possibilities? Well, Daniel 7 and Revelation 13 gives us more clues. Daniel 7 has the 4 beasts that come out of the sea. We need to look at the first 3 beasts initially. A very quick overview of them is: the first is a lion with wings of an eagle, the second is like a bear, the third is like a leopard with 4 wings of a fowl and 4 heads. So we have physical descriptions of each, and we know all 3 of these nations will be around in the end times, but can we identify them? Well, Beast 2 and 3 are identified for us. Beast 2 is the one like a bear that is going to devour much flesh. It is ready to attack and trample. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. The ram, we are told, is what is now known as Iran, and it is also spoken of in the 2nd verse of Daniel 11. So I think it's possible to say that the aggressive bear in Daniel 7 matches Iran. This would also then match the silver chest and arms of the statue in Daniel 2. Then the third beast, the leopard with 4 heads. Well, there's only one kingdom that we are told is divided into 4 in the last days. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and there came up 4 noticeable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. Now the word Grisha is used previously in Daniel 11 verse 2 to explain what country this is. But the word Javan is more accurate from the original language, and that area I believe is closer to being Turkey than Greece. So the third beast may well be Turkey, which would match the brass and the iron of the statue in Daniel 2. But what about the first beast? Well, the other 2 beasts go in order on the statue. The second beast matches the second part of the statue. The third beast matches the 4th part and some of the 3rd part of the statue. And the only part of the statue not included so far is the head of gold, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, or Iraq as we now call it. The first part of the statue and the first beast. If these are meant to be put together, then the first beast of a lion with wings of an eagle is Iraq. So far we have covered the first 3 beasts: Iraq, Iran and Turkey. Well, what about the 4th beast? This one is different to the first 3, and there's no real physical description. However, this is where Revelation 13 comes in. This chapter gives us the physical description of the 4th beast. The 4th beast in Daniel 7 and the beast from the sea in Revelation 13 are one and the same. We know from Daniel 7 that Iraq is symbolized by the lion, Iran by the bear, and Turkey by the leopard. So Revelation 13 tells us this final beast will have a mouth of a lion, the feet of a bear, and the body of a leopard. So the lion we know is Iraq, but the lion was made to be more like a man, and here we just have the lion's mouth. So my conclusion so far is that this is showing us the mouthpiece of the 4th beast, the mouthpiece of the end-time empire, and it is showing that this mouthpiece comes from where we would consider Iraq. And I think this is consistent with what we are told about the final leader of this empire, the one who speaks for it. He would be an Assyrian and come from Nineveh. Now Assyria used to be as at least partly in Iraq, and Nineveh is now Mosul, which is also in Iraq. So I think that's more than enough confirmation of the location for the false prophet, the mouthpiece of this new empire. I go through what we are told about this person in another video called Who is the Leader That Stands Against Jesus? But looking at the rest of the beast, it is described as having the power, might and aggression of Iran, with the feet, and the supporting body of Turkey. So now we can identify that this empire, when it takes its full form, will be based around Turkey and Iran, with the final leader coming from Iraq. We are also told this beast in Revelation 13 and 17 has 7 heads, albeit giving us slightly different information in each place. Now Revelation 13 could be relating to the head spoken of in Daniel 7 for the first 3 beasts, 1 for the lion, 1 for the bear, 4 for the leopard. This would be 6 of the 7 heads. The final head may well be the head of the empire itself, the 7th head. However, we are told that these 7 heads blaspheme against God, so all these nations would be lying about God. Revelation 17 also touches on the 7 heads, also calling them 7 mountains which the woman sits on. So this again could relate to the countries of Iraq, Iran, and the 4 that Turkey split into. We are also told that on top of the 7 heads there are 7 kings, and that the 8th king will come from the previous 7. So Revelation is written about the day of the Lord, and I think it's reasonable to take the description it uses of the kings from this point. So we are told that 5 have fallen, 1 is currently ruling, 1 will rule after, and then the 8th comes on the scene. So can we know which kings these are? Well, we may be able to from knowing the countries we should be looking at. We already know the beast is made up of Iraq, Turkey and Iran, and from Daniel we know that the leader of Turkey and the 2 leaders of Iran will perish. So taking this information and looking up at the rulers of each of these countries, I have found that there are 2 leaders of Turkey, 2 leaders of Iran, and 1 of Iraq. So this makes 5 leaders in all. So these leaders may have to fall before the start of the day of the Lord, perhaps due to Iran's attack in the Middle East. Then we are told of the one king that is. Now if this is the start of the day of the Lord, and after Iran's attack and Turkey being divided into 4, then this would be the first king of the north spoken about in Daniel 11. Then we are told of one to come after this, but this one will only be around for a short while. Well, this would be the second king of the north, also spoken of in Daniel 11, and this one we're also told is only around for a short time. Then we are told of the 8th king. This is the last one mentioned, and we are told it is one that rises from the bottomless pit, which relates to the 5th trumpet. And this is the false prophet, the beast of the earth, and also the 3rd king of the north. These descriptions relate to the same person. Now the 8th king also comes from the previous 7. So this could refer to the location of the Kurdistan region that covers part of Iraq, Iran and Turkey. Or the 5 fallen may all be from Iraq, which would mean that there would need to be 2 more leaders of Iraq to rise to power before this part is fulfilled. At the moment I am unsure which option it is. So I think at this point we know more about the Beast Empire and also touched on the leader of it. But we are given more detail. We are also told this beast has 10 horns with 10 crowns. We know these match the 10 toes of Daniel 2, and that the 10 horns are 10 kings who give their power to this empire, and who get together to destroy Mystery Babylon, as shown in Revelation 17. So if these horns match the 10 toes, then we may have been given another clue. We know the empires of the statue in Daniel, and we know it separates into north and south. So with the 5 toes on each foot, there may be an indication of 5 kings from the north and 5 from the south. So can we work out which ones they may be? Well, we already know the body and feet of the Beast Empire, which will be made up of Turkey and Iran. Turkey, which is divided into 4, and Iran, which is still 1. So that would equal 5 kings in the north of the Middle East. I am not counting the false prophet leader, as we are told he is the 11th horn and rises up after the 10. But what about the south? Well, the war between the north and south in Daniel 11 state other nations. Saudi Arabia and Egypt are both indicated to be part of the south, as may well be Jordan and Sudan and Libya. The last 2 may well switch alliances to the north after a while. But if these countries being spoken about are of the south originally, then we have the 10 kings as being from the north, Iran, and 4 from Turkey, from the south, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Sudan, and Libya. So we have a brief overview of the start of the Beast Empire, and using Daniel, the order of events. The start of the Beast Empire will be after 5 leaders have fallen. So it'll either be 2 from Turkey, 2 from Iran, and 1 from Iraq, or possibly 5 leaders from Iraq. Turkey will then split into 4, and Iran and Iraq will get a new leader. These 6 countries are the 6 heads of the 7-headed beast. Then the alliance will happen. The north and south will briefly come together to fight the west. This is the time of the first king of the north. Then there's the second king, and finally the 3rd king, which sets up the empire completely at this stage, which is the 7th head. So at this point the Beast Empire is fully realized, and is Iran, Turkey, times 4, with the leader coming from Iraq. The last main thing to note about this empire is that it is called dreadful, terrible, and exceedingly strong. It is given the power and authority to lie and deceive people, and it will be a great deception. We are told it devours, breaks in pieces, and stamps the residue of the entire earth with its feet. Now the entire earth in Daniel can mean just the Middle East area, but we cannot know for sure here whether this means the Middle East or the entire world as we know it. But either way, we know it will be extremely destructive, and we should be watching for it arising so that we are not deceived by it ourselves. We are also told the 7th head is seemingly mortally wounded but recovers against all odds. This causes people to wonder at it and worship it, and seemingly everyone whose name is not written in the book of life will worship it and be deceived by it. At this point, the empire will continue for another 42 months before Jesus returns, and the empire will then be destroyed. But the people who are in Iran, Turkey, and Iraq will live. They will lose their country, but their lives will be spared for a time and a season. Jesus sets up the 1,000-year kingdom, and there will be no more lies, deceit, or destruction. Please ensure that you are not one of those who worship this beast kingdom. And know, if my interpretation is correct, the first major sign that will occur to trigger the start of the rise of this empire will be the fourth supreme leader of Iran attacking the Middle East, including Turkey. Thank you for listening, and God bless.